Well, hello there, and welcome to Rising. We have just a really terrific show for you today. Hello, Briahna.
Hello, Robby.
How are you?
I'm doing well. It seems like you're in especially good spirits today.
I just decided I was like 5 seconds ago. So.
I'm glad to see it. This isn't related to Elden Ring or a Mario Brothers movie.
Oh my God, Elden Ring. You dropped an Elden Ring
I don't even really know what that is.
I'm a little Tears of the Kingdom, the Zelda game, a little starved right now because I didn't get to play except for like 30 seconds yesterday. But I hope to get back to it soon.
Oh, we're all pulling for you, Robby.
A lot of important work I have to do there.
We're all pulling for you. All right, well, back to the news. A House Oversight Committee Chairman, James Comer, said the FBI has not complied with Republicans' subpoena for unclassified documents alleging a criminal scheme involving President Joe Biden and a foreign national. In his statement, Comer said the GOP will take steps to hold FBI Director Christopher Wray in contempt of Congress, a move which Speaker Kevin McCarthy backed during an appearance on Fox News yesterday. Let's watch.
What could you tell us about Christopher Wray cooperating at some point with which something he has to constitutionally do with Comer?
Look, Comer subpoenaed the document that he's requested. We have jurisdiction over the FBI, which they seem to act like we do not. I personally called Director Wray and told him he needs to send that document. Today is the deadline. So let me not just tell you, let me tell Director Christopher Wray right here, right now. If he misses the deadline today, I am prepared to move contempt charges in Congress against him.
Now, according to an internal GOP memo obtained by Politico, Comer's probe into it is focused on payments linked to Romania and China from Biden's time as vice president. Comer alleges criminal payments to the Biden family and also to associates totaling more than $10 million. As you'll remember, multiple whistleblowers have come forward alleging the FBI's investigation into Hunter Biden did not follow proper procedure and that the Bureau labeled credible evidence against the president's son as disinformation. This is so frustrating. Does the FBI think it's above the law? It's above the accountability of the American people through their elected representatives in Congress? They don't want to be scrutinized. They don't want to. They think they're above the law.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting how one can justify not turning over unclassified documents that have been subpoenaed by the House. Obviously, as they made the effort to win back the House, Republicans were principally talking about how this was going to be a significant part of their agenda, that having subpoena power again was a big part of the accountability that Republicans hope to bring to looking into what has been potentially going on with the Biden family, an issue that they have been talking about, obviously, since the election back in 2020. And so for their efforts to now be thwarted in these ways, potentially by the FBI director, it's a very significant political moment for Kevin McCarthy, especially given the pressure he's under right now, negotiating the debt ceiling deal and having these factions existing within the Republican Party, some of whom think that he is not far enough to the right, not far enough adopting the kind of Trump mentality. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there was the group that was going to withhold his nomination for Speaker in the first place in January. And now because of the concessions that they got through that process, it's very easy to kick him out, as it were, or at least easier than it would have been otherwise. So he's walking a tightrope here, and I think that this particular issue, and being forceful on this particular issue, is important for Kevin McCarthy to keep legitimacy with that part of the Republican Party.
Sure, I think it's good politics for him. This is very important to the Republican base. It's important to the kind of members that, as you point out, held up his nomination in order to make sure he was really going to deliver on some key conservative promises. But also, I think it's good policy, frankly, or policy is not the right word. It's good. It's important for the Republic to hold government officials to account. These bureaucracies that have just grown beyond any accounting and any control, thinking that they are operating, they can do whatever they want. The distrust in the FBI, and this is what is so frustrating to see. Kind of the mainstream, many Democrats have become, I know this is frustrating to you as well, have become defensive of law enforcement agencies, cable news, MSNBC and CNN and other mainstream outlets, rely now on the judgment of top law enforcement officials because these law enforcement officials didn't like Trump very much. And it's just, and now it's all deference to them. And we can't trust them to police themselves. They don't deserve to be shielded from scrutiny. It's all cloak and dagger with them. And many of the American people, not just on the right, but also on the left, are sick of it. Many on the left have known this for a long time. Libertarians have known this for a long time, and Republicans have just woken up to it. And maybe you could cynically say it's because they were too mean to exactly one person, Donald Trump, and we should have been Republicans should have been more discerning all along. But now Democrats are being undiscerning.
Yes, it is a wild swing from the protests in 2020 over George Floyd's murder to a time when you have all these Democrats singing the praises of the police, of the FBI, trying to sick the FBI on Matt Taibbi, calling for more funding of the Capitol Police, and on and on and on. But I do want to ask you this. The FBI, of course, has offered a response to what's going on here. And what they say is, they said in a statement that they remain committed to cooperating with lawmakers in good faith, and that any discussion of escalation under these circumstances is unnecessary. The FBI said it offered to give the Oversight Committee access to information responsive to the committee's subpoena in a format and setting that maintains confidentiality and protects important security interests and the integrity of FBI investigations. What do you make of that?
I mean, that sounds like they want to redact everything so that they're not actually telling you anything. I mean,
it could also mean I'll show you the document in the room, but we don't want it circulating more broadly, those kinds of things, which, it was described by Kevin McCarthy as unclassified. It's not clear what the justification would be for this layer of confidentiality outside of the political concerns.
I don't trust at all the FBI or other agencies to say that, no, this is national security, or this is secret, or this is classified, nobody should get to see it. What's the big secret? Why can't Americans have access to the information you have? Why can't the people you work for see what these documents are? Unless this is literally like the names and locations of spies we have embedded in other countries, this is information we should have. This is a problem I rail against all the time on this show, the routine overclassification of everything. It's actually created a problem for political figures because they end up with documents that they shouldn't have because they're technically classified. This has ensnared Donald Trump out of his own embarrassing clumsiness, but also Joe Biden, Mike Pence, and everything else because they classify too much stuff.
Well,
it's knee-jerk secrecy.
So the Democrats on the Oversight Committee are saying this. They say that the subpoena document, by definition, reveals nothing more than an unverified and an unsubstantiated tip made to Donald Trump's Justice Department, which presumably led to no evidence of criminal wrongdoing. That's from Jamie Raskin, top Democrat on the Oversight Committee. So there are two things that can happen here.
Then why can't we see it? If it's so mundane and there was nothing worth following up on it and didn't point to anything, then let us see it.
So there's an argument that, one, there is a there, but the FBI is right to say that they don't want to leak it. They don't want it out in public because there is an ongoing investigation, and it could compromise the investigation in a way that, frankly, would not behoove Republicans who are interested in pursuing justice in this way. Or it really is kind of nothing, and in which case it is a little curious as to why Democrats wouldn't want it to just go ahead and be revealed, because the way it's being characterized right now by Republicans is like it's quite a bit of something indeed.
Right. They can't have it both ways. They can either release it all, just like they've been asked to do by the elected representatives of the people, or get Comer in a room by himself and quietly explain that this is very serious and we're looking into it and we can't have it totally in the public right now, but that's because the investigation is moving forward, and put him at ease, and then he can explain that to the American people. You can't both say it needs to remain kind of secret and it's a nothing burger.
I mean, the third option is that it is optically bad. Like any number of things, let's say, Trump having people stay in the Trump hotel and benefiting. There were all of these emoluments clause arguments about why Trump should be impeached because he was
I remember that word,
self-paying, all of these, the kind of things.
The emoluments! The emoluments!
But there were things that Trump did that might not have risen to the level of requiring him to be, impeached. But there were, I would argue, bad form for a president. Jimmy Carter famously gives up his peanut farm to be president, to get rid of
Trump
any
installed his children
perception.
In the White House,
exactly. So it could be one of those things that the Biden family doesn't really want to deal with, especially in an election season, but isn't in fact illegal. And that sort of feels, given the posture that both sides are taking right now, more likely than not to me. Because again, if it's truly nothing, you're basically feeding a Republican frenzy right now. And the way they're characterizing this as evidence of real corruption, it's bad. It's a bad look.
If you want to stop the speculation from Republicans about the Hunter Biden investigation, then just show us what you're doing and show us what you've had. And then there can be, the uncertain state of this thing for so long, like that's been an effective arrow in the quiver of Republicans because it is so ambiguous. One
other counterpoint here. They're just saying, well, you have nothing to hide, show me all your cards, open your house, submit to search and seizure.
I mean, that's what they always say to us.
Well, but it's obviously an anti-civil liberties sort of a position. And there was an argument when people were saying we need to see Trump's tax returns, we need to see all of this stuff. You know, there was pushback at the time that says, well, no, you're using these kinds of investigations and weaponizing them to attack a candidate or a president that you happen not to like. Do you think there's any credibility to the argument that something similar is going on here? And there's an attempt to expose something untoward in a way that isn't actually well geared to finding criminal wrongdoing, but is intended to embarrass the president?
I don't think it's counter to civil liberties to demand that the government be totally transparent. Like the government officials and investigators, FBI agents, don't have a constitutional right to not have scrutiny from the American public, right? The Constitution protects our rights, safeguards our rights against theirs.
The president's son.
Well, yeah, and he is fully entitled to all due process and presumption of innocence and search and seizure protection and all that. But the investigation into him is a separate thing. That's a government thing, and we have the right to know what was going on with it.
Look, I am generally of the mind that officials, senior folks like people in the White House deserve a higher level of scrutiny, and I am reluctant to argue in their defense. I will say, however, there is an interesting parallel between the frustration that some Republicans have with the IRS because it is perceived to be weaponized in various ways, like it was toward Matt Taibbi, and saying that these institutions can be sicked on members of the population in a way that is coercive and threatening and inappropriate and anti-democratic, and the ways in which some of these investigations can also similarly be weaponized, both against Donald Trump and against Joe Biden. And it seems to me a very politically messy Pandora's box to open that could come back and bite the Republicans in the proverbial rear in ways that they might not be anticipating down the line.
Well, we will continue to follow that, and we'll have more Rising right after this.